I'm gonna show you the best deck right now. We're currently at the European Championship. Well, I'm in the hotel. I scrubbed out, of course. But before you click away, this is the best deck. I'm not the best player, but this is the best deck. There's gonna be, maybe you want to make a few changes or something, but this is fucking cracked. Without further wasting your time, let's go into the actual profile right here. As you can see, my girlfriend's currently filming. This is the field center. I don't need to top. I already topped. Look at this beauty. With that being said, here's the profile. So it's Danger Tearlament because Dangers work really well with Tearlaments. They trigger Tearlaments, and then also they're just insane going second. They fix your hand. You play triple Nessie because it's the best one and it's Aqua, so Aqua plus any tier makes all of those tier fusions work. Then Mothman is insane because you can choose which tier you're triggering, like just from your hand if it gets killed itself. The only issue is that if you have multiples of it, you start minusing yourself and you start helping your opponent as well. So 2 feels like the perfect number, and if you hit Nessie with Nessie, you can search this anyway. Also, it's a 4, so Jackalope gets really good because Jackalope can always search this. Like you can go Nessie, search Jack, choose itself, get a Mothman out, and then Mothman can overlay with on any level 4 to make all of your rank 4 plays. Also, we have Chukinoko because it's a danger that doesn't suck. And we have one Bigfoot because you can search it with Nessie, and then it's an other interruption because you can discard it for Super Poly, or going second in general, like you can search it and then it can out a Sprite board because it's big, and Sprite is just, super afraid of anything bigger than a Luster Dragon. So that's the dangers. You might want to expand this with more of them, like maybe you want to play like Thunderbird or something like that, but I like these. Bigfoot was a last minute addition, so if you want to play only good dangers, then you could cut Bigfoot as well, because sometimes this does suck going first, but it is what it is. Then I'm playing one Dark Grepher. This thing is really good with Nessie. However, I do have to say, it can also sometimes just suck. Like sometimes it's just a bad Armageddon night. So if you want to not play cards that can sometimes be too greedy, I would cut this and maybe even the reinforcement of the army. It's currently 41, but up to you. Drawing this with Nessie is still insane, of course. And then we have one Zephyros. Zephyros is insane with dangers because he can basically, if he's milled or sent from hand, you can basically get a danger back to hand, reuse them, and then he's a level 4, so you can make rank 4 plays with him. He's also Winged Beast, which is a different type, so you can make Curious with him really easily as well. And Curious gets you Snow. Speaking of Snow, best card in the game. This is the reason to play this deck. Like, if you're not playing this, then why are you playing Tier? Like, just play Sprite. Or at least, why are you playing Danger Tier? Because, getting to Curious into this is the reason you're not losing to Dark Ruler or Super Poly or anything like that. So for that reason, you gotta play this. Then we're playing all the tiers at 3. Some people were playing lower counts of Rhino Heart, and that's fine in decks where you have another normal summon, but in decks where you don't, this is the best normal summon ever anyway. We have 3 of the field spell because it searches anything, and we have 1 of the Meta Noise and 1 of Sulik. Crime is a bit weird, but these are just insane. Very often I will search Meta Noise because if Sprite is trying to break your board, even if they have Dark Ruler no more or something, you can literally Meta Noise the first thing they do. So you have a Book of Moon on that, and then you Snow the second thing, you Book of Moon that, and then it's over. They just don't have plays because then they don't have a level 2 and they have no way to special summon all their sprites. And then this is just better in matchups where Book of Mooning sucks. It's also a longer term thing, and it's also really good to mill. With that being said, knowing when to Meta Noise and knowing when to Sulik is pretty important in this deck as well. So these are all the big tiers, of course. Then we go into Super Poly. Super Poly is the most important, best card in the universe. Ever since Garura came out, it's very hard to try and understand how different our meta is from OCG purely because Garura came out. Garura makes this card the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever. And then we have a triple Dark Ruler, which is the second best board breaker after Super Poly. So then we have 2 Pot of Desires because any deck that can play Pot of Desires should play Pot of Desires. It's literally Pot of Greed without downsides. The only time this card sucks in this deck is if you can't play without activating it, so you need to activate it first, and then it banishes Snow. That's the only time this sucks, but usually your hand is good enough to where you can play, get Snow out of your deck, and then activate Desires. And even then, the chance that you banish this Snow from this is still pretty low, so you need to play this. This card is insane. Unless there's a bunch of one-offs you want to add into this deck to increase the ceiling, sure, but draw 2, why the hell wouldn't you play it? Then the broken one-off spells we have Called By, should be banned. We have Terraforming, Surge a field spell with Instant Fusion. This is one card Kitkalos. I don't know why this is legal. Foolish Burial because it can either get snow or a name, whatever you need. It's basically Curious in a spell. And then Reinforcement of the Army because it can search either Greffer or Rhino Heart depending on what you need. Though again, like I'm often signing out Greffer and this when going second because we're playing Rasphere mode in the extra deck, and then side deck, and then we can't actually normal summon. So that's the main. Then we're going to the extra. We have double Dragostapella. This is the only mandatory double fusion, I feel. Like I was playing one a lot on Dueling Book and that was fine-ish, but too often it would come up to where you needed it to super poly into the second in the tier mirror, and sometimes you would also want to be able to like meta noise Stapella into another Stapella after they Dark Ruler you, or if you just want to use two, and then you can't do that because you need to have a legal target. So for that reason, two was really important. Then one Kaleido. This card is, you know, insane. It's like a spin, it's a re-trigger, it's really hard to out. We have Kitkalos, which is the most important thing to start with in tier. A lot of people are playing two, and like if you're playing a pure fusion deck, let's say, that's fine because you have the extra deck space, but this extra deck is super tight. Then we have Garura, which is a super poly target. Be very aware that it is dangerous to make this sometimes, even though this is super good to make Curious with because it's a dark and it's Wing Beast, so the only time this overlaps is with Zephyros. But and then you draw off Curious, like that's insane, but you really need to have this in your extra so you can resolve super poly. And then Mud Dragon, this is how you win the mirror because a lot of the stuff in the mirror is targeting, and then also it's a level 4, so that way you can make Xyz plays again. Speaking of Xyz plays, we have Dweller. Dweller is insane. If you think about it, this is a 2018 deck. Like all of these cards and these engines and so forth are like from 2018 Dark Warrior, Goki, Danger, Thunder, and so forth. And all the good cards from back then are banned or errated, like Firewall, Gunblar, Azathoth. But Abyss Dweller survived. So Abyss Dweller is still here and it is insane in the mirror. Then we have Redoer. This thing is overrated. Now, of course, it's like really good. Like you overlay Shiren with a level 4, and you can trigger the Shiren again, especially if you get stopped and sometimes in your opponent's turn. But the issue is that it's dark. So if you have this plus Dragostapella on your board, then you get fucked because every deck should be playing Super Poly. And then, you know, if your board gets out by one Super Poly and now your trap isn't even working because you don't have a name on board, it's really bad. So, you know, often you need to go into it purely because you need to keep on playing and you have 2 level 4s on board anyway. But too many people are making in the crutch where they play pure tier, they end on this plus Dragostapella, and then they get ended by a Dark Ruler or a Super Poly. So, you know, be aware of that. Though you can use it in standby, which I do when I make it. Then we have one Bagushka. This card is basically for Flu and Exosister and so forth. Like basically if you get Dimension Shifted, then you can't play the game anymore. So if you can then at least overlay 2 of your force, which is pretty easy to get even under Dimension Shifter, then you can just have a defense position Bagushka, and you basically pray that they can't out that. And if they drew Dark Ruler plus Dimension Shifter, then they're just better players than you. Then we have one Dark for going second, and you can also crash this, and then you can search Shiren. We have Curious, best card in the deck. Can either send another name, so you can trigger more fusions, or it sends Fairy Tail Snow, which is more often the case. We have an Appaloosa, which is just 3 negates, and also if Curious sends Snow and you have enough Grave, then you banish a lot of that, get Snow out, Curious plus Snow into Appo. And this is Wind, which is very important, which is also why you're not playing Punk tier, because Punk tier often ended on a Baron, but Baron plus Appo are easy super poly into Mud, which you don't want to happen. So if like half your board gets outed by one super poly, it's a bad board. Whereas the boards this deck makes, usually everything is a different attribute, so you don't get fucked by super poly, and Appo is like a big part of that. Then for the final package in the link package, we have IP together with Elf, together with Topologic Bomber Dragon. So basically what you do is you end on the board with Elf plus IP. This is still in your extra. You have a Merly in Grave. You go in your opponent's main phase. He tries to do some stuff, make some plays, let them commit. You go Elf, activate, targeting Merly, and then Chainlink 2 is IP. And then you turn these into Bomber, and then the Merly comes into a column from the Bomber. Merly does her mills, but Bomber will also just blow up the whole field. So you're battle butlering your opponent. You're basically playing Prankits, but in a even better deck. And then the Merly gets sent, so now her effect also triggers, and now you get to make even more stuff. And now you can make the choice. You know, if more stuff on your opponent's side the chain, so they make more stuff, and then you can either blow that up, or you can start summoning those new fusions in, you know, other arrows, you know, outside of the arrow basically, and then nothing gets blown up, and now they don't have a field and you have a whole new board. If you then also have Hofnis in your hand, and you know you didn't summon more stuff here, or maybe you did, you know, whatever, you can basically send special summon that here, re-wipe the board essentially, and then re-trigger Hofnis, getting even more fusions out. So basically Topologic Bomber out of these two is like a battle butler. Like you can Raigeki, well, Darkhold more so, once, twice, 3 times, depending on if you have Metal Noise and so forth. It's really, really insane. And Zeraboros can only do it once. You know, Zeraboros banishes, which can sometimes be better, but sometimes in this deck, since you're also banishing your own shit, it can also be much, much worse. So the fact that this, you know, destroys and so it triggers all your shit makes me prefer it. And yeah, it's worse against back row, but you know, I wasn't really expecting much back row at a European, you know, at a continental level event, let's say. So that's the deck. I think this is cracked. Of course, we'll see now. All the pros are currently still playing out. I think Danger Tier is best deck. We'll obviously see Sprite topping as well, but I think the ceiling of this deck is just so much higher. And I'm just super excited to see what they came up with deck-wise, and probably went even further than this. So yeah, super hyped for that. Hope you found this interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao. It's whatever.